Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Make sure to check out our website and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So today we have some pretty big news from around the Big Four and other accounting firms. And this is just going to be like basically a compilation of Big Four news related to COVID-19 and all the stuff that's happening around that. And first off, the biggest news is that KPMG is laying off people in Canada. And they are said to be laying people off in Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto offices. And there's various reports on this. There's a lot of stuff on Reddit. And the layoffs are supposedly hitting poor performers first, but it's also hitting lower staff levels. And it's even made its way all the way up to managers. And the layoffs seem to probably be in the hundreds range, which doesn't seem that much. But I don't think KPMG Canada probably has that many employees. And by like hundreds, I mean like 100 people probably across the Canadian firm. KPMG Toronto was said to have laid off about 40 employees. And there are some pretty terrible stories out there about KPMG employees only having a Skype call with their partners and then just being locked out of their firm email and notices being sent to their personal email and that they have to turn in their personal laptops and stuff. And a thing to keep in mind here is that these are still member firms, right? Like KPMG Canada is a member firm of KPMG. So they can make decisions before firm-wide emails go out if they get nervous, which seems like partners here did. And the partners getting nervous at KPMG makes sense, especially when you hear news about what other accounting firms are doing. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. And so these partners are worried about cash flow and their paychecks. And you have to think these people live a certain lifestyle. And if that is threatened, then they won't wait long to give you the old axe to the head, right? They don't care. If they have to take 20%, 30% pay cuts, it makes them nervous. And I mean, that's just a lot of people, right? So to me personally, it's a lesson here that people need to save money just so they can, not only for themselves, right? You need to save money for cases like this, but also you need to save money for when, you have to take a pay cut so that you can create jobs for other people. It just seems a little bit crazy to do this the way they're doing it. But another thing that I think this shows and that people need to keep in mind, and I hope they listen to, is that this shows a lot about KPMG, right? This is even from my own personal experience with KPMG. KPMG is not the best in this type of stuff. So, and this is the first story we're hearing like this. There's been other stories about the Big Four, but KPMG is the first to just go out there and lay off a bunch of people in a really bad manner. So you have to keep this in mind thinking about working for KPMG, that they have this culture. And to me, it's what I've experienced as well. They don't view their people the way the other Big Four accounting firms do. Most Big Four accounting firms view the people as assets because they make their money off their people. You have to think about most businesses, they might make their money off of products or things like that. So they're more worried about their products and their clients than they are about their people. Where the Big Four accounting firms, the people is how they make their money and the people sell their work. So most Big Four accounting firms really care about their people. But I think this shows a little bit more about the KPMG culture, and that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, going on to news around the world. So Deloitte in Australia is going to shut down. And Deloitte is going to be shut down for a week in April, and that's going to be around April 20th. And they said that they are doing this to avoid cutting jobs. And this makes sense since you won't have to pay for the cost of running such a large business if you take some time off. And I'm sure that it doesn't really make sense to have people take a week off and then pay them. So I'm sure they're having to use their vacation for this or something similar to that. And another benefit to having people take a week off is that you won't have people basically run in a circle and worry about their jobs and just sitting there tapping their pen against their desk, worried about what's going to happen to them. This shows that the business is actually doing something to help them keep their jobs. But another thing that Deloitte has done is they told employees that they need to be productive while they're working from home, and they need to do this in order to keep their jobs. And this makes sense, being what we just heard from KPMG, where KPMG partners already got scared enough to where they just laid people off. So I think performance reviews are going to be a little bit tougher this year in all accounting firms. They're going to be looking to label people as poor performers. And my guess too about poor performers and things like that, the way this often works in the Big Four accounting firms is they look at utilization first, right? Like how many billable hours do you have? If you don't have that many billable hours, then they're going to go to you first to lay you off, because that's like the number one mandate in the accounting firms is to just charge as many hours as possible. And if you're not doing that, then they're basically saying, well, you're not following our guidelines, and they're going to look at every single thing that you do as a reason to lay you off. Nobody's perfect. Nobody does everything in the Big Four accounting firms perfect. It's hard to. So they'll look into, do you come in on time? Do you dial into calls on time? Do you document your audits or your tax returns perfectly? Do you get documents into the systems? Do you track your time correctly? Do you get it into the system on time? Do you forecast your time appropriately? The way you avoid all of that is if you stay busy on a client. And it's going to be harder now with COVID-19, especially if you're in one of these industries that's really hard hit. Like the energy industry is getting hard hit right now, the travel and leisure industry. If you're in one of those, or if you're going to be in one of those, or if you're just planning your career in the Big Four, you need to think of ways to stay busy. And what a lot of people won't do right now that they should is just volunteer on stuff. You need to be able to volunteer on projects. And a lot of people don't want to do this because this usually means that you have to work really, really long hours, but you probably won't have to do that right now. But there are projects that have more work than others. It's just the way it is. People are still doing work. So the way you could stay busy is just volunteering outside of an industry or outside of a group that you're normally in. This means being flexible. And if you have a reputation for working hard and being flexible, then they just won't let you go. But if you're a person that does the bare minimum and you have like really strong boundaries about the work you do and who you work with, then, it's just unfortunate that they might let you go. Some other news in Australia is that Ernst & Young has cut the amount of money that partners can draw, and that Grant Thornton has said that they will make their partners take pay cuts as well. And in India, the Big Four in India have said that they're delaying their yearly appraisal cycle, and they will put off promotions, raises, and bonuses until further notice. And then Big Four partners in India are also being told to limit their partner draws. And as far as offers going out to new hires, in the U.S., the Big Four said that they're still honoring new employee offers, but I'm not sure how long that can last, to be honest. And if you have an offer right now from an accounting firm and they're still honoring it, like you should accept it right away. Like I hope everybody knows that by now. You shouldn't be thinking of which firm you're gonna do. You should choose your firm and just go with it before these things are taken away. Hopefully you should also move your start date up or try to get your start date moved up, because the further away your start date is, the more likely they are to not honor that job offer. And I know people are gonna have offers later in the year, and it's just, just try and move that up as fast as possible. And it's going to be hard because I don't know how the Big Four are actually doing the onboarding process right now, since a lot of people are remote, because they're going to have to give you your computer and all that stuff. So I don't know how they're doing that. And the trainings are normally at other locations than your home office, in like a hotel or a conference center, and they give you all your stuff after this training, and those can't be done anymore. So maybe they're shipping computers to people, and that's why I said it's probably better to start now or sooner rather than later, because even if you're going to school, you obviously probably need to get them your transcript if you finish school, but the sooner you start, the better, because that way you could just guarantee your job. And if you can try and finish school early or something. Right now, everything's kind of flexible because everything's online with school and work. So the sooner you can not only accept your offer but start working, the more likely you are to actually keep your job. And the other thing is, depending on what industry you're looking to work in, you might want to change industries or look into other industries, things like that, and maybe look into other areas of accounting that you didn't think about working before but might be in higher demand. Like audits are still going to need to get done. Tax returns are still going to need to get done. There's tax work that needs to get done with this stimulus plan that passed in the U.S., and there's audit work that needs to get done. All the accounting implications that COVID-19 has created. So there's a lot of things that are still going to get done, but all those ancillary things like various consulting projects, those are obviously going to go down. And going with the news around the world, in the UK, Grant Thornton has asked their staff to take either sabbaticals or a huge pay cut. And the sabbaticals would be unpaid, obviously. And if you don't take the unpaid sabbatical, then they have asked employees to take 40% pay cuts. That's humongous. That's like half of your check. And the other thing about the pay in Grant Thornton is it's not as high as the other Big Four firms. For example, in the UK, Big Four partners typically make about £500,000, while Grant Thornton partners in the UK only make about £373,000. So it's not only do these people not make as much as the Big Four, now they have to take pay cuts. And the partners in the UK are also going to be taking pay cuts as well. So that's the main rub here, is that the partners are taking the pay cuts, and so they're also asking employees to take pay cuts. And I'll speak to my experience too, because I started around the financial crisis, and there was pay cuts and no raises around that time. But I don't remember it being this drastic when I started. And I think the reason now is because you're having months now where businesses aren't earning any money. And so they're not going to be paying the Big Four money. They're going to be delaying payments to them. And so this is really the first time where the Big Four have seen where they're not getting paid directly, because even through the financial crisis, they were still getting paid. And I mean, it was obviously less, but they were getting paid. Like now it's just, we're not sure when they're going to get paid. We're not sure when the economy is going to come back online. When the economy comes back online, what's it going to look like? And so this has a lot of people scared and moving very quickly. So this is going to be a very fluid situation, and it's going to keep changing. If like right now in the US, the COVID-19 thing has been extended for another month. If that goes 2 or 3 more months after that, this is only going to increase the level of measures that the Big Four and other accounting firms are going to take. And in the UK, there's already been announcements that the Big Four firms are also going to be withholding profit payments to partners. And I'm sure these are just like the bonus payments. And Deloitte is also said to be offering their employees in the UK unpaid sabbaticals. So that's another thing to think about, is that if you have money saved up, now would be a good time to take a sabbatical, take some time off, and nobody's going to look down on you. I mean, there's a chance that you might lose your job, but I mean, there's not really a choice, right? Especially if you're in one of these industries where you're not getting much work. If you're in one of these industries in the Big Four where you're not getting that much work, then I would take one of these sabbaticals off, just so that it shows you're taking one for the team. And then, whatever happens. And I want to end on a good note. So I want to talk about like what you can do during this time. I already spoke about like you should accept your offer earlier or start working earlier. But you should also be like, if you can't start with the firm right away, if you can't get a job right away, then, I mean, you should look for other accounting jobs, obviously. That's the obvious one. You should work on your certifications like CPA or similar things around the globe. And then you should also like take courses. You could take courses in various software and technological stuff and start getting familiarized with data and analytics. And I'll be including a link to this blog post in the show notes to this. On that blog post, I'll probably eventually put the like courses that I recommend that people take so they can just stay up to date on the latest technology, because at some point the economy is going to turn around, and the more prepared you are, the better. But in the meantime, obviously, if you can't get a job at the Big Four or one of these mid-tier accounting firms, still look for an accounting job where you can. It's obviously probably going to have to be remote. In addition to that, you should strengthen your resume with technology skills and just differentiate yourself from everybody else. And that's the main theme today, is that the more differentiated and stronger your resume, the less likely you are to be expendable when the economy goes into a downturn, and the better job opportunities you're going to have. So that's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Big Four Accounting Firms. Thanks for listening.